Today's episode is with a total e-commerce marketing nerd that specializes in retention marketing and working with purpose-driven brands, trying to make the world a better place. She mainly focuses working with brands as a consultant and fractional retention marketing director, which translates to a one-woman show that can help accomplish all of your brand's retention needs, strategic planning, segmenting, flow optimization, and campaign setup. Please welcome Sophia Babb. Thanks for joining me.
Excited to be here. That's quite the intro.
Yeah, so to be fair, most of it was from your website.
Yeah.
So thanks for doing that. It was really easy. Made my prep easy. So what you're coming with a lot of experience from brand side agency now as like a freelancer consultant. Why have you been focused on purpose driven brands? What led you to that part of your journey, and why are you focused on that
Oh,
now?
it's really just a matter of like, do I believe in the brand or not? Like, can I actually get behind it? Because I'm just going to do a much better job if I actually believe in the brand. If it's something I would use or something I would support, then I'm just going to bring my full self to it instead of, if it's something that I want it. And I think that goes for most marketers. Like, I think you're going to get a better deal when you're working with people who get your brand. And that's what I'm all about. I'm always trying to use purpose driven brands in my personal life, whether that's eco friendly, more sustainable, like thoughtful ingredients. And so, why not focus on that in my professional life too? And let me tell you, it's made my life a hell of a lot better.
Yeah, I am sure. As freelancers, consultants, agency folks, if we've all maybe had those clients in the past who are like, don't really believe in this, or like, why are we
Mm-hmm.
like, are you sure?
Or like, this is
Uh,
for like men in their 60s, and I have nothing to do with that, And I'm trying to put my brain in that audience, but it's not quite fitting.
it doesn't quite align, yeah. So that makes a ton of sense. So that's how you that makes sense about being focused on
Mm-hmm.
purpose driven brands. Um, I guess then, like I said, you were on brand side, you've been on the agency side, now you're more focused on freelancing. You've talked about wanting to help founders better understand how to hire, how to vet,
Mm-hmm.
and the right partners of. So let's talk a little bit more about that. How do we hire? Like, when do we hire? Let's talk a little bit more about that. So what's kind of the first thing on your mind when it comes to the hiring process?
For sure. First is there a portfolio where you can see something where it clearly has something to do with your brand? So if someone's coming at you and they look like they have great experience and it's been years of experience, but they've only focused on something that has nothing to do with your brand. Let's say it's like B2B companies, but you're an e-commerce brand. It's like that's not going to translate as well, and you're probably going to have to spend more time training them than you would otherwise. So I like hiring people who, especially if it's something specialized, who you won't have to train them at all, and they're just going to kind of get it. And that's why, like, for me, like when I come on board with a purpose driven brand, it's like I get that audience. I work with it every single day. So we're going to be able to onboard quickly. And then when I was hiring for previous brands I worked for, it's that same thing. Like, do they get it? And you can kind of have a sense of that through their portfolio and their experience. But if they don't have the portfolio and instead you're going off of vibes, that's okay too, because culture is really important. And when you're hiring, especially in a small startup, because you're going to be working with these people every day, so you better like them. If you're going off of vibes, you got to have the hunger. So are they really eager to learn more about your brand? Are they like pushing towards that in their portfolio? Maybe it's not all that you see. We can't expect someone to have specialized their entire career around your brand. But just seeing like pockets of like hints saying, is this a person who gets my brand and my voice? Because the faster in an e-commerce brand that's, especially a smaller startup, the faster that they can get onboarded and understand who you are, what's your tone, it's just going to make your life easier.
Go ahead if you have more. I was gonna just ask
Yeah,
another
I
question.
really, it was more just like summing it up that the vibes are important. I think in the past, I used to think that the skill was all that mattered, and that I think that's true. But when you're working with someone every single day and it's a small startup, you're gonna you need to make sure that you actually like them and that you get along. Because if you don't, it's gonna suck.
Yeah, vibes are important. Skills also important, especially if you're a bootstrap founder. You're kind of like, cool. I've been doing this for a while on my own. I started
Mm-hmm.
doing email or SMS. I'm gonna hire someone else to do it. That is usually, it's not always, that's usually an investment and,
Mm-hmm.
a new expense for them that they hadn't been spending before. And when you're spending your own money and it's the first time you're doing it and the first time you're hiring someone, bringing them into your like baby,
Yeah.
like into your brand, now it's talking about this. Like you need to understand, like, cool, if I can work and talk with them every day is part of it, but how quickly can they ramp up and start getting me a return on my investment of hiring
Mm-hmm.
them? Because that's the most important thing as a bootstrap founder. So appreciate
Exactly.
it. Makes a ton of sense of saying that. So I guess that was like a little bit about you need to hire and you're starting to view and kind of check out other options, but what is the right time to hire someone? Like what are some of the variables or factors that go into deciding, I should hire someone for this? Like because
Yeah.
that's a whole other kind of story in itself.
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple ways that you can decide if it's the right time for you to hire. I think first it starts with, of course, your budget. Like, do I even have the budget to hire? Because if you don't have the budget to hire, then you're not going to be really benefiting from spending time in that area. Because especially if you're like, well, I have a budget, but it's small, and I might have to lowball people. It's like you're not going to get the best quality anyways, and it might just be a waste of money. So budget is first, but let's say, okay, I do have the budget to spend to hire someone. Maybe it means that my pay at the end of the day is a little bit lower since I'm bootstrap founder. But let's say that my time is now at this point where I'm missing really big things that I know could bring in revenue for my brand, but I'm missing them because my plate is full. Like I'm running the day to day operations of this brand, making sure that things get sent out to the customers. Like I can't be thinking about TikTok right now, but I know that if I don't, I'm going to be left behind because this is a really important channel. Or email marketing. In my experience, I see that every single day where email is like the last thing on every brand's list. But they know they're missing it, but they just don't have time. So then is the time that I could save by hiring this person to do this, would that also equal more revenue for the business? I think that's like a very standard way to hire. And then three, as a founder, as your team is getting bigger, you can't be in everything no matter what. Like there is not enough time in your day to be an expert at these channels. So as you grow, naturally, you will want to hire specialists or people who can help you with the day-to-day mundane things so you can lead the vision and lead with product development, product ideation. So it's really timing and budget. I think those are pretty classic. And
Yeah.
making sure that when your budget is tight, making sure that you hire the right person because mistakes can definitely be made, especially if you don't just have cash to throw around. And pretty much no one does. It's not like that anymore.
Yeah. So timing and then budget are really two good ones to keep in mind for sure. And capacity, like you're saying, is just like your time. I think one more to throw in there to add in is your own experience and expertise. No two
Mm-hmm.
founders are the same, and some might have a background in marketing, and then the first
Yeah.
thing they outsource is email because they're the paid ads person, and so that might just differ from each person. So I think
Yeah,
that's
exactly.
those are really good, really great points there. So then we have when to hire, kind of like how to vibe check with the portfolio and the culture fit. But then what's the expectation of, okay, cool, I think I've narrowed it down and hired this freelancer or agency. What should be the mindset or expectation in their head of my return on investment or
Mm-hmm.
how things should go? Like how does that typically go? How does that happen?
Yeah, I think, I mean, it depends on what you're hiring for, right? Like some things you may hire and you're never going to see an immediate return. Maybe maybe you're going to see immediate return through an ad agency, I would hope. But I think I would focus on hiring for things that you can measure a return, especially in the early days when budget is a lot tighter. And so with an ad agency, a big mistake I see brands making is they're just like, I don't get Facebook. It's not my thing. It's overwhelming. I'm just going to hire an agency and let them run with it. This is just a recipe for a disaster because if you don't understand Facebook and what your audience responds to on Facebook, then you're not going to be helping that agency create good creatives. They're just going to be like figuring stuff out. And maybe if they're really good, they'll help you like figure out that audience and create creatives for you. But I think that's rare. And usually they're going to charge you an arm and a leg for that. But I think as a brand, especially in the early days, you really need to know how to run ads and know how to run them well. Even if you're just doing $100 a day, maybe you're not scaling to $30,000 a day really quick. And maybe that's when an agency can help you is when you feel good with what you know, and then you can start scaling. But just as a founder, especially, I'm like, get in your ads account, just like figure it out. It's not that hard. It's really not hard to learn. So it's like you could be making so much more money just by knowing and understanding your audience and saving money in effect. It's probably not the best use of your time as you like grow and scale, but at the beginning, it's probably one of the best places you can spend time. And so you need to be looking for return if you do hire an ad agency immediately. But then, like I said, I see a lot of brands being like, well, this ad agency didn't find a return for me, so it's just not working. But it's like, do you know what works? Like, do you know your audience? Because if you don't, you're probably not setting them up for success either.
Right. Yeah. No, it's an excellent point, especially with ad agencies in particular, because
Yeah.
there's the this is coming from a someone who was a media buyer primarily in a paid ads background and was freelance consulting for brands before. Uh, there's the management fee, and then there's the
Yeah.
actual ad spend, like the actual money
Yeah.
on Facebook. So you have to
And
keep
that's
all
not
that in
even
mind.
including creative, like making creative, like who's doing that? Is that you? Is that them? Like there's so many costs that go into it. So you really have to be wise.
Yeah, so you have to make sure that's. I'm glad you said it. It's not that hard. Like technically speaking, it's not super difficult, and it's not mind-blowingly hard to actually get things
Mm-mm.
set up. It might take some time and effort and failures to actually get money back in the door and like the right return, but to actually
Mm-hmm.
go in and set up and understand what you're doing and saying, it's basic marketing. You're just putting it into this like interface, into this dashboard.
Exactly.
So I'm glad you said it.
I think it's scary more than anything for founders and for people who are running ads for the first time. It's just scary. I think that's why brands often in the early stages over rely on ad agencies to just hold their hand through it. But it's going to be so much better if you could face that giant of Facebook because it's not that hard. Like it looks scary, it feels scary, but like I said, even $20 a day, you're going to learn so much.
Yes, yeah, you definitely will. You'll start to understand, and you'll get maybe start to get some comments and
Mm-hmm.
questions, and you'll be able to get feedback that way. So whether, oh, cool, then I can change my messaging because I keep getting the same question over and over.
Yeah.
That's a lesson learned. That's a return on
Mm-hmm.
something. Maybe it's not the your 4x ROAS that you need,
Yeah.
but man, it's still something. You're still learning and growing. So I love your perspective on that. So that's kind of I guess going back to the original question, depends on what you're hiring for, depends, on the timeline in which you need them to succeed. If it's a one-off project or if it's an ongoing retainer,
Mm-hmm.
all that stuff sort of depends on
Well, like retention marketing is one, I'm used to this every day where a brand is like, what can I expect? Like, is it worth the investment for me to do this? And Usually it depends on how many subscribers you actually have that are active and how much traffic you're coming in through your site. Like if you have like 1,000 emails and you get one email sign up a month, that's an exaggeration, but you're probably not going to get a return on my fee. So it's best for you to not hire me at this point. But let's say you have 30,000 active subscribers and you're getting healthy traffic every month, let's say 1,000 new leads. Oh yeah, I can definitely bring in at least 2 to 3 times at least of what you're paying me through retention marketing. So I think when you're hiring a email marketer, they can promise you the world, but there are some things that email marketers simply can't do. My job as an email marketer is to help your customers repurchase, have flows set up that are like brilliant and that I'm testing on all the time, so you don't have to think about that. But I am not, as an email retention marketer, I'm not creating new customers for you generally. It's like the ads have done that. However, you've gotten traffic, maybe it's through TikTok or Instagram. They've already done that. They've gotten them in the door. I'm just helping you retain them and keep them coming back. And so I think that's a misconception, is that retention marketing companies or freelancers will help 10x your business. I just don't, it's not possible on our end. We're here to help you with your growth, but I'm not creating growth usually on my end.
Thank you for saying the truth. what
Yeah,
I
there's
believe to
so
be the
many
truth as
marketers
well.
that
Yeah,
don't say that, but
yeah. Thank you. Appreciate that. I think the more and more Sophia's out in the world, the better. Less brand founders will get kind of led astray of, oh yeah,
Mhm.
email 42 times return on investment. It's the most profitable channel. That stat is thrown out every year for like the last decade or more of, you should be getting $42 back for every $1 you put into email. So,
Yeah. I mean, do you follow like Alex P on Twitter? She's great. She
oh yeah,
has
yeah,
no best practices. She always talks about retention and how it's really hard to actually track retention and how much it brings in, because you would have to have cohorts and you would have to not email people and then see if they spent anyways. And I think there is this aspect of retention marketing where there are a lot of customers who are going to purchase no matter what you do, whether you email them or not. And then there are some, of course, that need the incentive through sales, discounts, value props, but they just need a little bit more convincing. That's where my job comes in. Like, unfortunately, with the way that reporting is, I get to take credit for customers that convert on emails, even if they were going to buy anyways.
sure.
But that's why I always tell brands that are like, they don't have huge budgets or they're really looking to increase revenue. I'm like, I'm happy to help you with these goals, but just know this is not going to be the overnight success. Like, you're going to need to figure out your ad side for
Yep.
that. And so, yeah, that's kind of my personal philosophy when it comes to promising revenue or not.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. Alex is a great. She was a guest on the show previously. I'm sure I'll have her back on.
She's amazing.
She's the no best practices, even though I generally agree with that, but at the same time, there are certain fundamental things that you start with. So,
Mm-hmm.
but we're not here to dissect
Yeah.
that. So, speaking of your point about you taking credit for people that are likely to buy anyway, um, I know this is a touchy
Yeah.
subject. Attribution. So, where do you stand on like email and SMS attribution? Like, there's the platform defaults. Every platform
Mm-hmm.
and tool has their own default setting in their window. Like, what do you recommend, or how do you navigate that with clients?
Yeah. Well, firstly, I don't recommend going off of the default attribution windows. Klaviyo's default is like 5 day click or open, and attentive is 30 days. And I think PostScript is even longer than that, which is like 30 days. That's insane. And so the other option, like, that's a really, really generous attribution of like every dollar that's spent basically gets attributed to email. In that sense. But then there's really like conservative approach, which is last click. But even Alex talks about last click not even being the best measurement. But if you really want to be conservative, you could go to like 1 day click, not 1 day open, but 1 day click. And so really it comes down to like what you're looking for. Like, are you tracking your return on investment based on, are you paying this agency something? Are you like trying to measure it that way? Then maybe last click is the best way to go. If you're trying to, let's say, you have a longer buying cycle, maybe it's a little bit longer than um, usually I say like 3 day click is a good like basis, a good place to go from. Maybe it's a little bit longer if it's a huge buying cycle because it's a really like expensive product that you're selling.
Yeah.
Um, I think really as a founder, you have to get really, really intimate with your numbers and you have to have a dashboard knowing here's how many dollars I need this channel to bring in every single day. And then you can make intelligent decisions on return on investment and how much, should be measured attribution wise. If you're doing it that route, I would probably recommend 1 day click.
Okay. Cool. No, that's great. That's a great starting point. And I'm glad you I didn't know some of the 30 days for a text.
I know because I was looking at some of the attentive accounts I've gotten into, and literally it said all of the revenue came from attentive. And the client was like, "Look, it's working so well for us. Like, let's double down on attentive." And I'm like, "Oh my gosh, this is this is really expensive for you because text marketing is super expensive." And the two, I don't actually think it's working this well. Like, let's scale this down and see how well it actually is working.
Right. Okay. So uh and then you said five days on Klaviyo is the default for open or click. And then you were
Mm-hmm.
saying about depending on the buying cycle, the price of the product. For example, I'm not asking this for any particular
Mm-hmm.
reason. Say it's a mattress. Like
Yeah.
what would you change? What would you let me give you more context instead of just
Yeah.
like tell me what to do. Free quick 2 minute consult. That's surprise. Um, our early survey results from post purchase,
Mm-hmm.
people who buy from us either half know about us a month or less. So
Mm.
once they hear about us, they buy within a month. The other half, it's 2 to 4 months or up to 12 months.
Yeah.
So knowing that and the price point, our average order value is 800 and up. What would you consider changing that window to?
I would still probably recommend a 3 to 4 day click just because if you're trying to measure if this email had something to do with them making a purchase, then that's a pretty accurate way to say it. If even though it's a longer buying cycle, if you're sending on a regular cadence, there's a good chance that they're receiving and clicking and opening your emails within the time that they're deciding, even if it's 6 months later. Obviously, if they're not subscribed, then you can't attribute it to email. So then they're on their own. And that would be really interesting to see, like non-subscribed to email versus subscribed if the conversion rate's higher. I think that'd be interesting to look into. I actually bought a mattress recently online, and I was one of those ones that bought within a month. I was like, I need a new mattress. I need it quick. I'm going to do some research. And getting the welcome emails for all of the brands was actually really helpful because it allowed me to like compare and contrast. So
Yeah,
I actually this brand I probably was converted better because they had a good like system of telling me about the brand through their welcome flow.
cool.
Um, and so yeah, I think attribution is a weird world for email. I will say that. So it's
Yeah.
really up to your comfort and what your OKRs and objectives are for your brand.
Yep. Okay. Cool. That makes sense. We I've been with the brand for almost 4 months now. We just got on Shopify last month. So in the 5 year existence of the brand, I sent out the first email the other
Mm,
2 weeks ago. So that's why I was asking uh, um,
yeah.
about that. It was pretty relevant. So appreciate the quick 3 minute consult. You can bill me for that after. So that's cool. That's good. That's helpful. So you're saying if an $800 and up mattress is 3 or 4 day click, like
hmm
your $30 skincare, beauty, apparel, shoes, $30, $50 more impulse type
Yeah.
buys, That should be less than 3 or 4 days.
I mean, yeah, if you want to be aggressive and want to be like really understanding what's converting, I think that's a good way to do it. The only thing is sometimes there are sale emails that, or maybe something new that has come out, but someone doesn't get to their inbox immediately. And so maybe they're like following up from a day before, but they've clicked on it like 3 days ago, but then they just realized that they wanted to purchase. I think that's why a 3 day window is okay. Because when you think about our buying behaviors, like our personal buying behaviors, I know for me, sometimes it is like 3 days of receiving an email and then actually making the purchase. And
Yep.
so I want to account for that too. Um, but yeah,
Cool.
so it's really like I said, it's up to how aggressive you want to be with tracking the profitability of a channel.
Yep, that makes sense. And just like this is very similar to ads and attribution. Facebook used to have 28-day click and 28-day view.
Yeah,
Even you could change it too. So like
yeah,
loads of every platform wants to take the most credit for
of
saying,
course.
"Hey, cool, we're helping you make money. Keep giving us money, and you'll
Yeah,
make money." So just keep that in mind as there's they're all kind of biased. So that's cool. That's helpful to better understand. We've talked a little about hiring and that process. We talked briefly about attribution, retention. I went to your website and during my prep, what and this pretty interesting case study teaser kind of came up of like, get the case study about how I
yeah.
added an extra 250,000 a month for this brand. And I was like, whoa, that's pretty neat. So would you be willing to share parts of that or another example that you've had
Yeah.
that like you want to go into a little bit more and explain like the little bit more intricacies of it versus, hey, I sent more emails and like
Yeah.
I got them more money.
Yeah, I mean, well, to be fair, like if I was going to boil down the strategy, it would be I literally just created flows and emails for them that they didn't have before. They were sending like maybe one time a week, maybe less, so like 2 to 4 emails a month, and then they didn't have like any flow set up except one welcome flow email. And this brand was doing so much money, like they were getting like $10 million in revenue every year, and they were doing very well for themselves, but they didn't have email set up. And I'm like, you guys, this is a really big opportunity because this is a high cost product. It's a long time of considering it. You have a welcome flow and abandoned cart flows for sure could help with converting. And you're already doing great, so you know the product's good. So like let's like hit the ground running, get these flows out. And that alone with that welcome flow was just like immediate revenue added, especially when we started doing win back and like re-engagement flows for people who had fallen off the wagon, or since this is a longer time of considering, it's like expensive couches basically.
Yeah.
That added a lot of revenue pretty quick, and then we upped the campaigns to about 2 to 3 a week.
Nice. Okay. So to put that into perspective, if they're already making around 10 million a year,
Yeah,
250K extra per month is about 3 million a year. So you
yeah,
just incrementally added uh increase the like by 30%
yeah.
just
That's like a dream
by
scenario
email.
for
Yeah.
me because I'm like I can actually help you. You know, some brands. I actually was talking to the brand recently that wanted to work with me, but I was like, you know, I think I can. I think I could help you. Like, I for sure could do the things you want me to. But you're already doing a great job with your own existing team. Like, I don't know how much more revenue I can bring to the table other than what you're getting right now.
Yeah.
And so, like, my dream scenario and what every brand owner's dream scenario should be is like, is this the right time, right fit where they can bring extra revenue beyond what I already have in house or what I can do myself? And so, that one, of course, was like a key case study because it's like, this is the type of brand I want to help, is ones that actually need the help and I can be there for them.
Nice. Yeah, no, that's super cool. That's really good. So then uh this is tying back into the hiring, like the right agency, the right freelancers or the good ones will not accept every client lead that comes in the
Mm-hmm.
door. Like
Exactly.
they will turn you down, just like you will turn down certain customers of your brand if they're already chatting you or emailing or calling and like being negative or aggressive
Yeah.
or rude. Like you don't need to like you don't need to like help them. You don't want their money.
Yeah.
So same with the same on the service provider side. So it's pretty. Glad you brought that up. I just
I
wanted to
think
like.
it's important for whenever you're vetting people to make sure that they're asking questions about you as well, like as a brand owner. Because if they're not, if they're just like, yeah, everything sounds good, and they're just pushing you towards a sale, you can tell. One thing that I don't want to forget to bring up is that um, there are people who are like trained in sales who get on these calls, or they're agency owners or whatever they are, and they've trained in sales and the psychology of closing a sale. I'm sure you've read about it. I know I have, but it does not feel good to do it, because what they're doing is they're asking you questions that make you feel bad about yourself or your business. And then they basically like prime you to say that you need them. If they're doing that to you, just immediately, like, that's a red flag. They might be able to provide a good service, but I think it's better to work with real people who actually want to know you. They're not just trying to close you as a deal. Um, and especially for like startups, I think you're especially prone to that, because you probably do need them, but you might not need that exact person.
That is excellent. That is really good. I feel very similarly when I had a decent close rate and like,
Yeah,
but I did not have a formal strict script or sales process. I was just like, tell me about the brand.
same. It's
Let
worked
me
great
know.
for me just being a human.
That's yeah, but
Yeah.
like Matt, like how do you do it? I just ask some questions and like if I can't help them, I can't help them. Like
Yeah.
that's the whole point of that's on us. That's our part of the business is to keep generating enough leads to be able
Yeah.
to then qualify the right ones to for us to work with and not have to take on every lead that comes in the door.
Exactly.
So that's not the brand owner's fault. That's on our side. But
Hmm.
that's good. That's interesting. So okay, going back to that case study, then briefly, a couple more things on that is when you talk about increasing the campaign frequency, and you said before is like maybe twice to four times a month, and then now you're up to like 2 to 3 times a week.
Hmm.
What like as a non-email marketing person that is gonna be doing more email for Stumptown, uh, what are you like? What are the types of campaigns you're sending 2 or 3 times a week? And is it to the same
Yeah.
audience? Is it different segments? Like, tell me a little bit more about that.
Yeah. So depends on the brand, right? Like on what segments you're and what types of ideas. But let's just use like this furniture brand as an
Mm-hmm.
example. So they talk from everything about different collections to the product benefits of a specific collection that's their bestseller, or maybe they talk about like UGC of images of people's houses who have this, or design inspiration. I think if you are really close to a brand and you get it, you can have an unlimited amount of ideas. And if you really want an unlimited amount of ideas, just go to ChatGPT and put in. They actually maybe don't do that because the ideas won't be very good. But usually for me, I collect ideas through like reallygoodemails.com, Milled. I'm checking out other brands that I know to be, I don't know for sure if they're performing, these emails are performing well, but it gives me a good basis to have ideas from. One thing that I recommend for you or for any brand that's like, what do we send emails about? It's like, what are the customers' pain points? You can always come back to that. Why are they buying your product, and like what purpose does it serve in their life? You can always come back to that. Like, you're never going to say it enough, especially because campaigns that convert are mostly sending to people who have signed up recently and who are on the fence. And so think of it as like you're sending an ad to this person of like why they should buy. It's just another layer from your Facebook ads.
Gotcha.
um, and then beyond there, if it's something that maybe they buy regularly, like multiple times, I think you can have endless ideas there as well. Something that I like doing is find a brand that has nothing to do with your brand. Like, let's say you sell skincare, but then you're looking at a brand you like for inspiration that sells shoes. Just look at the types of ideas they're putting out there and adapt them for your brand so that it's not the same. It's just a really good like creativity exercise. It's kind of like what artists do when they're copying other painters. you know, it's like it's just for creativity and idea purposes. But yeah, you can. I think going back to the customer pain points is always something you can send even once a week if you wanted to.
Okay, cool. So that makes a lot more sense, and that's helpful for sure. And to borrow, steal, remix, copy, adjust, like
Yeah.
from other folks. So then I guess a follow up question on that is, you said it's generally people who've signed up recently, or they abandoned cart, or they joined the welcome series.
Hmm.
Maybe they haven't purchased yet. How frequently or not are you kind of just going back a few months and resending a campaign, or like that same type of campaign? Like, this email did well 3 months ago,
Hmm.
and okay, cool, now we have totally different people in this segment. Like, can I resend the same one? Should I not
Yeah.
do that? Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's totally fine to resend the same email if you change the subject line, of course, and then make sure that if someone has converted or and they have seen that email, there's ways you can segment to exclude them if you're concerned about that. One thing that you can do, which is a lot of brands are doing, one brand I love, they're called Crown Affair. They have the same template for every single email. It's just the copy is slightly changed and maybe the photos. You can just change your template so that, let's say it's the exact same email, but the hero, or the headline is different. Simple. It's like the same email, but just slightly different. And that's totally fine to do that, especially if you saw that performed well and had a good conversion rate.
Cool. Okay, that's so much less overwhelming than having to be like, oh, I need to create a whole new, original, brand new, never wrote this sentence before, never made this design before, like every single week as like a one man team.
Yeah.
So that's helping
That's
put
like
me at
fine
ease
if
a
you want to
lot.
test. Like if you want to go crazy and test ideas, like sure, but if you know something works, it's okay to reiterate on that. I mean, that's how Facebook ads work, right? Like you're just doing a variation of what's working over and over. And also, like I said, ads aren't that hard to learn. Email marketing is even 10 times easier to learn, especially as a brand founder, because you're only going to have so many layouts for your email, like design wise, that are going to convert. It's like usually you have a hero image, you have a header, you have a subhead and a call to action, and repeat. It's really not too complicated. It doesn't need to be long. Actually, it probably shouldn't be long. And so when you're thinking about writing, let's say 12 emails for in a month, that seems like a lot, but if you're following that same structure and shorter copy, and you know your audience and what works and what to talk to, it's going to be actually pretty quick for you to accomplish that.
That's a handful of sentences. You're
Yeah.
rearranging them. You're kind of rewording them. If you have a few different products, you're talking about that in a different way. So
Yeah.
that's cool. That makes sense. You're helping ease me, helping me
Get a
come to
template.
grips with it.
Get a template made
Yeah,
if you haven't.
yeah,
One that can drag and drop in Klaviyo is even better, so you don't have to deal with the design of it too often. Or get templates made in Figma that you can easily change out, but that'll make your life a lot easier.
yeah. So with Canva or Figma or using another tool and then putting it into Klaviyo, um, I'm asking like maybe dumb or simple questions, but that's my job.
That's okay.
It's like, do you then just export it as a PNG entirely and then put it into Klaviyo directly? Do you like cut it up into like this section, that section, and then put it in? Like, how does that actually work?
Yeah. So I think the phrase is like you slice it. So you
Uh huh.
slice the images. You could do this in Photoshop too, but you slice the images and then put them into Klaviyo, and you slice them by section so that you can link to different things and add in alt text if you want to. Also, that helps. So if the email hasn't loaded all of the way, if you have just one big chunk of an email, it's going to take longer to load. So maybe a couple elements will load before the others, so someone knows that it's coming. If your emails are taking forever to load, that's not going to be great for your conversion rate. And also, it just means your images are probably too big or you have too much going on. I
Cool.
think usually a mix of having a drag and drop template in Klaviyo and images is the best way to go. Just so you have like dark mode capabilities so that you can actually read it when their phone's on dark mode, but also so you can have more design capabilities that Klaviyo might not have.
Cool. Okay. No, that helped. Yeah, slicing. Yes, I've heard slicing before.
Yeah.
That makes a lot. That makes sense. Um, Cool. So we got a little bit more time. We got a couple more questions as we start to land the proverbial podcast plane. Um, so what's we're recording the middle of January. The episode will be released a couple weeks. So 2023 is a whole new. It's a new year, and every year people make these like predictions and trends, and
Mm-hmm.
this is what's going to change in the landscape. I'm not going to go there. Uh, More about what what have you seen over the last couple years, the changes and adaptations to either email or SMS that you previously thought a different way, and you're like your mindset has shifted on it. You're like, oh, I actually believe in text before I didn't.
Mm-hmm.
Like, what's something that has kind of like you've changed your mind about in the last couple of years?
Definitely changed my mind about email send numbers. So, like, let's say that in the past, I felt more like, oh, I don't want to spam customers. I don't want to bother them. Like, let's not send a ton every week. I have directly seen that the more you send, the more revenue you get. So that doesn't mean you should send 2 emails a day every single day, like some brands do that. Maybe if you're making multi-million dollars, you can afford that and you have the capacity for that, and great. Um, but for a smaller brand, I think you don't be afraid of sending too many emails. And also, don't be afraid of having your emails be super simple. That can allow you to send more emails, but it can also allow you to test and iterate. I've seen plain text emails, which is an email that just looks like a normal, regular email that you're sending maybe in Gmail. I've seen those that aren't designed at all perform way better than designed emails that take 10 times longer to create. And like I said, you can have a template and just iterate on that. I think sending more emails and not giving as much of a shit about what they look like are two things that I've definitely changed my mind on in the past year.
Yeah, that's cool. That's helpful to know. Again, me personally, but also to just reiterate and for everyone listening, is like we are so close and like connected to these brands and products and these things we're working on, and that's all we think about. And
Yeah.
for most consumers and customers, it's like they don't even think about us every day, or they see the email for 5 seconds,
Mm-hmm.
and then that's when they think about the brand and product. Like, just because it's such a big part of your life doesn't mean it's such a big part of their life all the time.
Yeah.
And to just
And
like
that's
you said,
another
share that.
argument to like send more, because if they're only seeing your brand or remembering your brand, because you need to see it 7 times before you purchase, whatever, like they need to have that frequency. And you're, like you said, it could be 5 seconds of them looking at the email and then they move on. That's why if you spend like days making sure that the design is meticulously perfect to your brand guidelines and is cutting edge, like design forward, like that's, if you're enjoying that and you have the time for that, great, but it's probably not the best use of your time. I've seen horribly ugly emails do amazing just because they know how to talk to their audience. I think copy is really important. But design is not necessarily important past the general like UX of an email.
Yeah.
Like if you have clear call to actions, clear messaging, so someone opens the email and immediately knows what it's about or what you want them to do, great. Beyond that, it's really up to you. And it's kind of just for fun at that point. I don't know if it necessarily leads to more conversions.
Yeah. So no, I'm glad you brought up brand guidelines, and especially since we're talking about smaller, medium-sized brands at best. Like, what is your perspective on brand and brand guidelines? Like, is it, oh, you need to follow this 17-page PDF for every single thing that you do on every marketing channel, or is it like, is it a little different? How do you view it?
Well, I think for email, it should be interpreted a little bit more flexibly, especially if it's going to allow for the email to shine better. Like, let's say you don't have any bright colors. You only use like 2 really muted colors. That's not going to be great for email because you're going to want to have some visual hierarchy and some use of color for the call to action, right? So maybe you don't use that color on your website, but let's just bring one into email. Also, it is nice to have really beautiful emails. Like it feels good, especially as a brand owner, when you're building something and you see this beautiful, like cohesive product across every channel. That's great. But I think if like talking about Facebook ads, if you're really married to that and you're inflexible with having things not be perfect, it's going to slow you down and you're not going to be able to iterate as fast. So I think if you're a design forward, like design heavy brand and it's super important to you, that's okay. But you're just gonna have to know it may come at the cost of being quick and agile.
Cool. Yeah. I think that makes a lot of sense. And again, depends on the brand. If you're a
Mm-hmm.
$30 this versus a $8,000 luxury this, like that,
Yeah, of course.
huge difference. So all depends. Grain of salt. So cool. Anything that's been on top of your mind lately, a recent piece of content or post you saw, kind of want to wrap things up with that, or something you wish I had asked you, or it came up earlier that you want to, bring up now, kind of like final thoughts here.
Yeah, I mean, just to sum it up, I think testing is really important, especially when it comes to retention marketing. I think for every piece of marketing in e-commerce, testing is important. But in retention marketing, your welcome flow, abandoned cart flow, your like main flows are where you're going to have the most leverage. And so making sure that you're testing them and understanding like, is this the best we can get, or can we push a little harder and that conversion rate? I think that's great. I think this year, what I'm hearing a lot already is just this idea of test and then pivot, like test and pivot over and over, whether it's when you're launching a new brand, launching a new product line, or an email. It could be as simple as that. I think we should go back to our roots in e-commerce of like that lean startup mindset. I think a lot of people miss that. I think this past couple years were like a way over reliance on Facebook ads and not understanding the customer, way over reliance on funding and not understanding your customer and just spending money as much as you can. And I think going back to the roots of like know your customer, test things, then pivot is going to be a recipe for success for any brand in any facet of their marketing.
Awesome. Stay close to your customer, test and pivot.
Yeah, it's
Great,
like the
great.
3 principles.
Yep, that's awesome. Great way to end there. Uh, Thanks so much for your time. Where do you want to point people to if they want to learn more about you? They have a follow up question. They want to talk to about hiring you. Now's your time to plug away.
Yeah, I mean, you can follow me on Twitter at Babb_Sophia. I'm trying to spend less time on Twitter this year, so I may not be as active there, but I check in at least once a week. And then if you're interested in hiring me for retention marketing because you have a good list and maybe you don't have the time for it, but you know that you're missing some revenue opportunities, I'm happy to talk, especially if you're a purpose driven brand. And you can just go to my website at ingoodlight.co.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Sophia. Appreciate it. Everyone else listening, thanks for tuning in. Let us know what you thought about it. Leave us a comment, message, and I would love to hear that feedback. And catch you on the next episode. Have a good day.
Thank you.